This single AWS interview question has rejected even senior backend engineers. Hello everyone, welcome to the series of AWS interview questions. Today we will discuss an AWS interview question related to IAM role and cross-account access. A question that interviewers use to instantly judge your real-world AWS understanding. If you can explain this clearly, you will immediately stand out different in AWS and backend interviews. And surprisingly, it's not a complex question, but most candidates gets it wrong. In this video, we will break it down step by step, the core IAM concept behind the question, exact keywords and structure you should follow while answering the questions, and what interviewer is actually testing. By the end of this video, you will be able to explain IAM role and cross-account access confidently using the exact language that interviewers expect. Now let's first clearly understand the interview question. The interview question is all about IAM roles and cross-account access. How does cross-account access work in AWS using IAM roles? In simple words, how can a user, application or service from account A access resources in account B securely? Or interviewer may also ask like a Lambda function running in account A needs to access an S3 bucket in account B. How will you design this securely using IAM? Think about these questions for a moment. All these questions are related to one another. Here, the interviewer is trying to test your overall AWS understanding. Let's first understand why candidates fail to answer these questions. Most of the candidate answer this like we create an IAM user in account B and then share the credentials with account A, or we will attach permissions directly to the users. This is completely wrong. Some candidates even say we will give public access to the S3 bucket. That is even worse. We can't give public access to the S3 bucket or any of the AWS resources. Others know IAM role exists, but they cannot explain assume role, STS, trust policies, and why credentials are temporary. The interviewer is testing three things. Do you understand the difference between IAM role and IAM user? Do you understand the trust relationships? Do you understand the STS and assume role? This question is not about syntax. It's all about AWS security design. Before solving this question, let's clear one fundamental concept. Let's see the difference between IAM user and IAM role. An IAM user represents a human or application that needs long-term access to AWS. It has permanent credentials such as username and password for console access and access key and secret key for programmatic access. On the other hand, an IAM role is an AWS identity that does not have permanent credentials. Instead, it provides temporary access and it is assumed only when it is required. This makes it the most secure way for AWS services to access other AWS resources. IAM roles eliminate the need of hard-coded credentials. IAM user use long-term credentials while IAM roles use temporary credentials obtained via STS. For AWS services, cross-account access, and production workloads, IAM roles are the recommended and secure approach. AWS services should always use IAM roles, not IAM users. This single line is enough to impress the interviewer. Now comes the heart of the question. STS. STS stands for Security Token Service. STS provides temporary credentials. When a service assumes a role, it gets temporary access key, temporary secret key, temporary session token, which is valid for a limited period of time. This process is called assume role. It's an API call provided by AWS STS, Security Token Service. In this process, no credentials are stored, no secrets are shared, everything is temporary and secure. Now let's understand how the cross account flow works. Consider we have two accounts, account A and account B. Lambda function is running in account A and S3 bucket is present in account B. How will you design the cross account setup? We create an IAM role in account B. This role has a permission policy allowing access to the S3 bucket. Now comes the most important part, the trust policy. The trust policy says account A is allowed to assume this role. Lambda function in account A calls STS AssumeRole. STS returns temporary credentials. Using these credentials, Lambda accesses the S3 bucket securely. Now let's see the difference between trust policy and permission policy. This is where many candidates fail. So remember this clearly. IAM role has two policies, trust policy and permission policy. The trust policy answers who can assume the role, while the permission policy answers what actions are allowed after assuming the role. The trust policy lives in the target account and not in the source account. Policy answers the important question, whom do I trust? Now, let's understand the complete cross account flow. Consider we have two accounts, account A, the source account, and account B, the target account. Now, how the complete cross account flow works. In account B, we create an IAM role. In the roles trust policy, we allow account A to assume this particular role. We attach permission policy to the role, defining what resources it can access. From account a user or service calls STS AssumeRole. AWS returns temporary credentials, access key, secret key, and session token that is valid for a limited period of time. These temporary credentials are then used to access resources in account B. Internally, AWS uses AWS Security Token Service, that is STS. STS validates three things: trust policy, permissions, and caller's identity. Then it issues the time limited credentials, which is usually valid for a few minutes or hours. This means STS provides temporary and short lived credentials. Now, let me give you the perfect interview ready answer. In AWS, cross account access is implemented using IAM roles. In the target account, we create an IAM role and define a trust policy that allows the source account to assume the role. The role, the role has permission policy that defines what actions are allowed on which resources. From the source account, a user or service calls STS assume role and AWS issues the temporary security credentials. These credentials are often used to access AWS resources in the target account without sharing any long-term credentials. This approach follows the AWS best practices and ensure secure, scalable cross-account access. So while answering this question, you should always say I am role, not I am user. Mention something related to trust policy. Say something related to assume role, yesterday's assume role, and emphasize more on temporary credentials. If you include these keywords, interviewer immediately know you understands AWS deeply. Now we will look into some follow-up questions that interviewers generally ask. Why can't we use IAM users for cross-account access? IAM user use long-term credentials which increases security risk and requires credential sharing. AWS recommends IAM roles because they use temporary credentials that is obtained via STS and that eliminates the need for hard-coded credentials. The second follow-up question can be, where does the trust policy live, source or target account? The trust policy always presents in the target account because the target account decides who it trusts to assume the role. Third question can be asked like how long the STS credentials are valid. STS credentials are temporary and valid for a configurable duration. Typically, it ranges from 15 minutes to few hours. That also depends on the role setting. If you are preparing for AWS or cloud interviews, please make sure to like and subscribe this channel for more real-world AWS interview questions and backend questions. In the next video, we will discuss another AWS interview question that most candidates gets wrong, that is related to real-world AWS architecture.